In this session, our main focus is conditional. But before we get started, let's look at what we've learned so far. All of the code that you've written in the previous two sessions has been sequential or linear. Basically, what I mean by that is that each line of code is executed one after the other in the order that they have been written. So if we want our programs to be useful, it is necessary to be able to decide which code to execute depending upon the outcome of some event. To achieve this, we will need to use conditionals. Now, conditionals statement is an if statement which allows the computer program to change its path and do something different, and this is all based on the condition you set out. Below is the structure of an if statement in Python. We have already seen in our previous session that white space is important when programming in Python. So in an if statement, all indented code will be considered part of the condition. So as you can see here, if the condition can be true or false, we want to execute this code. However, this code will have to be indented to be part of this if statement. Else, execute this code if the condition is false. Now, you do not need to have the else part. If you only have the if, that will be an if statement. If you have the if else, that will be considered as an if else statement. And then we have chained conditionals, and we also have nested if statements. We will be looking at all of them in this tutorial.
The flowchart here on the left is representing a simple if statement. So as you can see from this flowchart, we have a condition. If the condition is true, then the statement will be executed. If the condition is false, then the program will end and basically not do anything. If you want one thing to happen when a condition is true and something else to happen when it is false, then for that you would use an if else statement. So the first print statement will execute if the condition is true. If the condition is false, then it will print statement 2. Sometimes there are more than two possibilities and we need more than two statements. One way to express a computation like this is by using a chained conditional, and the other way to tackle this problem is by using a nested if statement. Here you are looking at a chained conditional flowchart, and again exactly one statement will be executed here. There is no limit of the number of elif statements you can have here, but only a single final else statement is allowed, and it must be the last branch in that statement. It's time to put all of this into practice now, so let's load up Python and let's start coding.
The simplest branching command is known as an if statement. It only has one branch which the computer takes if the condition is true. This program here asks the user if it's dark outside, and then the condition says if dark is equal to Y, then execute this line of code. If it isn't equal to Y, then do nothing and the program will end. Pause the video and type in the following code and see what happens. When you are typing it in, please pay extra attention to the colons. Do not use semicolons. Ensure that you're using a colon after the condition, because that's a common mistake that people make and they get a syntax error. And also, when you are typing this code in, maybe you would like to do your own variation. Once you've done that, hit the play button to move on to if-else statements. Do you want a program to do one thing if a condition is true and another thing if it's false? If that is the case, then you need to use a command with two branches, and this is called an if-else statement. So we are going to write a program which will ask the user whether they have tentacles. If they answer yes, then it will state that they must be an octopus. If they say no, then it will state that they are human. Each decision will print a different message. So as you can see, I have first asked for the input from the user. So I've created a variable called tentacles, which asks the user, do you have tentacles? And then after that, I've asked the user either to enter Y for yes or N for no. Next, I am going to write the condition, and the condition we will write is if tentacles equal to Y, then I want it to print. And now when I do insert print, as you can see, it's been indented. So whatever's indented there will be part of this if statement. If it was not indented, then the message will not print. So if tentacles is Y, so if the user enters Y, I will print I never knew octopuses could type. Else, so if the user types in anything else apart from Y, so N, then I want my program to print greetings human. Now, before we move on to running the program, can you spot any errors? What am I missing? When I run the program, I get a syntax error and it says if tentacles equal to y. I'm not following the language of Python here because I'm missing the colons. So please make sure that you've included colons after the if and after the else. So the else is missing the colons. Let's enter them and then let's hit the run button again. And we should get the question, do you have tentacles? And if we insert Y, we should get the message, I never knew octopuses could type. Now let's try it with an N. So, do you have tentacles? No. Greetings, human. So that means you are a human. Well done there, guys. Let's move on to using multiple branches now then. Where there are more than two possible paths, the statement elif, short for else if, comes in handy. This program will ask the user to type in the weather forecast, either rain, snow, or sun, and based on the user input, it will choose one of the three branches and weather conditions. So let's get started. Here you can see I'm doing the input, so asking the users what is the weather forecast for today, and in brackets there I've given them the option of rain, snow and sun. The next step will be to do our first condition. So the first condition would be calling upon our variable weather. So if the weather is equal to rain, don't forget your colons at the end of rain. It's a common mistake that people make. So if the weather is equal to rain, indent the print and say, do not forget your umbrella. So this block will run if the first condition is true. So if the user enters rain, they will get the message, do not forget your umbrella. Now I'm going to use the elif and call upon the weather variable again. So elif weather is equal to snow. Make sure after the quote, single or double, depends on which one you're using, you put a colon there and then indent your print and mention, do not forget to take your woolly gloves and hat. Oops, I've made a spelling error there. Woolly, double O. Once you've done that, you're ready to move on to the final statement, which will be an else statement. So you see, we've got if, elif, and now it's an else. We can have another elif. You can have 5, 6, 7, 8 elifs, but you finish off with an else at the end. So else with the colons, print, remember your sunglasses. And there you have it. You've created a nested if statement.
Now it's time to test the program to see if it works as it should. So just hit the run button and you get the message, what is the weather forecast for today? So you've got three options. Let's start off with rain. So we are expecting the message, do not forget your umbrella, to be printed when we hit enter on rain. And yes, we do. Let's rerun our program. This time let's try snow. And hit enter. Do not forget to take your woolly gloves and hat. And finally, let's type in sun and see what happens. And remember your sunglasses. Now, how does this work? So an elif statement must always come after if and before else. In this code, you can see that the elif checks for snow only when the condition set by the if statement is false. You could insert additional elif statements to check for more types of weather. So why don't you try this on your own now? It's that time again to check what you have learned and challenge yourself. So the fairly easy challenge, you need to write a program in Python that displays a random message to the user based upon a number they have entered. The output message should always include the user's name, and the output of your program should look something like this. So your program should ask the user, please enter your name. When they do enter their name, it should say thank you with the user's name. So the example I'm giving you here is Mr. K. And then the user should be asked to choose a number between 1 and 5. I've chosen a 1 in this program, and they should get a response. So
The response I got for choosing 1 was, Mr. K, you really are quite brilliant. Hit the pause button and attempt the challenge. Once you've completed it, hit the play button and move on to the not so easy challenge. Not so easy challenge. I want you to write a program in Python that asks the user to input a number. The program should output a message telling the user whether the number is odd or even. Now, the output of your program should look something like this below. So please enter a number. So if you enter 5, 5 is an odd number is the message that you should receive. However, if you enter the number 8, 8 is an even number is the message that you should receive. Now, a top tip for this not so easy challenge is an even number can be divided by 2 without leaving any remainder. So the modular operator percentage can be used to find the remainder. And there's an example below.